Hi, my name's Christian, and let's draw something interesting. Here we have the mountain that I drew in the first session, just the inks, without the fill and the shadow and the highlight that I put in the second session. What I intend to do here is just to show some alternative ways of drawing similar mountains that won't be as monotonous as drawing this same style of mountain over and over again. So I'm going to turn off the ink layer and just leave on this basic template layer of the mountain frame. You can draw a mountain frame very easily anytime you want, just kind of draw a mountain. The big difference is how do you fill in that mountain. So what we'll do is show you that I'm using pure black ink and I'm using my basic tech pen with a brush size around where I like it when I'm drawing. And so first of all, we could do the kind of mountain that doesn't have a big ridgeline coming towards us, carving the mountain into valleys. What we could do is have ridge lines sort of coming off the top of the mountain here like this, that kind of all come away from the top of the mountain. And what this is implying for us is that the mountain is sort of bulging out towards us without a lot of big prominent valleys that would be carving into the front view of the mountain. So if we're having our contour lines coming away from the mountain like this, and once again I'm cueing off of these little promontories that I've put in, where I might throw a little bit on the back side of the mountain like that, might throw a little bit of contour line coming off the back side of the mountain like that. Still using my basic rule of making the inks not quite touch, trying to keep the inks looking as elegant as they can. But a mountain like that, you're kind of seeing it, you're seeing these bulges of the mountain sort of coming out towards you in your mind's eye. Without any big significant valleys like the other style of mountain had. So, that's a basic way to do it. And if I was going to shadow this mountain, I would be throwing most of the shadow across the mountain like that, with very little shadow on this side. And that's a less complicated looking shadow than I had before on the previous style of mountain. That's one way to do it. We could also load it up from the other direction, and by that what I mean is each time I'm doing this, I'm sort of starting from bits and pieces that I see on the mountain here and working forwards, following sort of an algorithmic process, but also at the same time trying to imagine what the mountain looks like in three-dimensional space. So what I can do as a next step is to contrast with the last one where the middle of the mountain is bulging towards us. Let's make one where the middle of the mountain really recedes away and the big valley is sort of in the center. So coming off of a promontory like this, I'm going to draw a big sort of swooping contour line like that. Coming off of this valley, I'll draw another smaller contour line. And what these are doing is that this is sort of implying that there's a big central valley and that these sides of the mountain are much more prominent, coming towards us much more clearly. So I'm just going off of these little wiggles that I've made, picking the promontories as places to go from, and making the mountain look as though it has this sort of big central valley. Actually, what I'm going to do is not do that. See, we've got some contour line here, but we can go like this coming off of the side. Now what you're doing is you're imagining the rest of the mountain on the other side. You know, there's lots more stuff out here that we're not ever going to see on the map because we're not going to draw it. But you wind up with a very different look, a very different implied shape to the mountain. Doing something like this. And if I was shadowing this, I'd actually be putting shadow coming down like that. This would be mostly highlighted. And then I'd have some shadow coming like that. And I'd have deep shadow down here in this valley because the light coming in this way is not going to hit down in there. And then maybe some little shadows here against these ridge lines. And a big shadow over on that side. So a very different way of doing a mountain, very different look to the way that we did the first and the second time. And finally, we could do sort of a fun, slightly complicated looking mountain where we have not a simple ridgeline coming towards us, but sort of a meandering ridgeline that implies a lot of space moving towards us. So the way we do that is we'll start at the top and we'll come on down. We're giving it a wiggle. At some point we need to do a switchback like that. So the ridgeline is coming along, maybe there's a hump in it, it's coming along, and maybe we'll switch back again. The ridgeline is coming along, and then peters out. So with a front ridge line like that, it's going to make it look like there's a lot of space here that this mountain is taking up. But what we need to do is have contour lines coming off of that ridge line. And the most important ones here are going to be right where it switches back. So we got a big contour line coming down, and then some smaller little contour lines coming off of it. Anywhere there's a bump, we might have a bigger line coming off like that. Maybe a little bit coming down. And then again, where the big switchback happens, that's where we need a big contour line coming off, showing that this ridge line continues on and kind of diverges here. And then comes over here, continues on and diverges here. So again, we're going to have little ridge lines coming off, following mostly from the promontories, the bigger ridge lines coming from where the promontories are. And as you're doing this, it's starting to kind of take shape in your mind's eye. You're starting to see the mountain this way, and you realize, oh, okay, so if I've got some slope coming down like this, some slope coming down like that, where do I need more slope? Well, I need it on the back side of this ridge line. This is going to be pretty heavy shadow over here. Again, as I get near the top of the mountain, I'm getting steeper and steeper. And then maybe this over here is something kind of big that needs to have a little bit of contour coming off of it, a big feature like this. So we've built a valley here, the ridgeline comes down, swoops across, and we're using the same process for all these other pieces here. Like this promontory, okay, maybe this gives us a little bit coming down like that, so that this is a real narrow valley, this is a bigger, wider valley. And these little promontories are all giving us a little bit of contour coming off of them like that. And again, this is implying that there's a big ridge here, there's stuff behind it, and we can put in that stuff behind it, throwing some of these little back contour lines coming off the end here, like that. So now we have this deep shadowed valley here. We're going to throw some shadow when we do the shadowing We're going to throw a bunch of shadow here, the light coming in and stopping at this ridge line. This is going to be mostly in highlight, but maybe some shadow here. This is going to be nice deep dark shadow here and shadowing into this valley. And then of course deep shadows over here. So several different ways of doing a different looking mountain just based on the same framework that you had initially, just the simple mountain framework.